going to be PDF accessibility with Shawn Jordison. And Shawn Jordison is a alternate media assistive technology specialist. And I think I shortened that a little bit for you, Shawn, for the Accessibility Center here at the CCC. So with that, I am going to go ahead and stop sharing, and we will get started in 30 seconds.
Awesome. Thank you, Dawn. One second here. I got a new monitor that I am going to try to share properly. There we go. Okay, who is ready for a speed run of PDF accessibility? If you guys have questions, I will try to answer them in the chat. Otherwise, we are going to direct you to post your questions in the VRC at the end of the session, and I probably will be answering those questions throughout the day when they come in. So today we're going to be talking about PDF accessibility. Dawn did a great job at introducing me. Thank you, Dawn. I have an MS degree in assistive technology and human services and have been in alternate media and assistive technology for 10 or 11 years now. So today we're going to talk about several introductory remediation techniques, including the Make Accessible Action Wizard, the Reading Order Tool, and auto tagging. The session is jam-packed with a lot of information, so bear with me. So the first thing that I like to talk about is PDF accessibility from Microsoft Word. Similar to Grackle Docs, starting in Drive or Google Docs, starting in Word often gives us a better base for our accessibility. So anytime you can add as much accessibility elements to your Microsoft Word document, the better and faster and easier will your PDF be accessible as well. You will have to spend less time in Acrobat, the more time you can spend in Word. And this is completely dependent, of course, on the subject matter of what is in the document. So whenever possible, make sure that your Word document is accessible. You can run that Word accessibility checker. And it is important how you create the PDF. So best practice is to do a file save as Adobe PDF or use the Acrobat tab to create a PDF. This will ensure that your formatting is included in your document when it's converted to a PDF. Once you have that document in PDF, you want to verify that the tags are in a logical reading order. And then you can run the PDF accessibility checker to try to find any additional errors that may be within it. So there are many different paths for accessible PDFs. Today, we're going to be talking about these three. We are going to look at the Action Wizard, using the accessibility checker, and of course, manually tagging. This is why it's a speed run. We could spend a good hour on every one of these topics. So it's important to note that PDF accessibility is kind of like a maze. Accessibility is sort of like a maze in general. There could be many different ways to fix the same error. And it's important to know all the tools in your toolbox. That way you can use the right tool for the job. So when is a document actually considered accessible? Well, there are several different websites out there that can give you that information, one of which is section508.gov. They will provide a more intense breakdown of what the Section 508 standards are. But generally speaking, in plain English, they include the following elements. So your documents need to have an appropriate tag structure applied. This means that content that is supposed to be a heading is marked as such. Content that is supposed to be a list or a figure element or data in a table needs to be marked appropriately with the correct tag. And the tag needs to be spelled the correct way as well. Images need to have appropriate alternate text. Tables should be used for table data only. There are issues with layout tables in PDF. Oftentimes it's a little game of whack-a-mole. When you fix one element, especially in tables, you'll get another error somewhere else. You want to ensure that the language is set in your document properties. Most of the time, this is defaulted to English, but it's always a good best practice to just make sure. And if you are working with documents that are not English, it's very important that you set up the right language code. Those can be found on the web. They often are a shorthand acronym for the language. Spanish, for example, is ES. And if you work with other languages like Arabic or things like that, you might have a different short acronym for the language. Finally, you want to ensure that appropriate color contrast is used. Now, there are many, many tools out on the web that can help you test for appropriate color contrast. My favorite one is the color contrast analyzer. If anyone is familiar with that tool, I'd love it if you throw a link in the chat for me. That would be very helpful. But it's called the Color Contrast Analyzer. It's a quick eyedropper tool that can check against the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. And I use it on a daily basis. So there you go. So let's jump into the specifics of the PDF accessibility. So accessible documents contain tags. These tags can provide semantic information to the document, like headings and lists. They actually control the reading order for most assistive technology. If you have students who are relying more on the program read and write, you will have a different reading order. Read and write, they read PDFs based on the reading order panel and not the tag structure. Yeah, a lot of these terminology, a lot of the terminology uses the same words, but it's important to know where these menu items are when making your documents accessible. The tag area also controls image descriptions. It's also where form field information goes and things like that. Now, adding PDF tags doesn't change the visual appearance of the document. Basically, it provides an invisible layer of formatting so that the document will work with screen readers and people are able to get to the content that they want to get to in a timely manner. They add efficient document navigation. And imagine reading a newspaper with no headlines. How would you choose which story to read? You'd be stuck reading entire paragraphs of text before you can actually get the information about what the article was. I lost my mouse. Hold on one second. There we go. So a part of the PDF accessibility is understanding the tag anatomy. I'm just going to spend a minute or so here explaining this. Essentially, tags are containers, and every tag has something in it. In this example, we have a figure tag, which has the image content in it. This could be described as a parent tag. So the figure tag in this example on my screen is highlighted as a parent tag. Now, what we're looking at here is essentially the relationship between a parent and child tag. You often won't hear people talk about tags in this way, but we have found that it's important to establish that relationship to understand a lot of moving the tag structure or the specific elements required for 508 when you have nested tags inside of each other. On my screen now, we have a parent tag, which is the figure tag, and the child tag containing the content of that figure tag. In this example, it is the actual image. And you can see that it has some numbers in it. This is the width and the height. There's a number 122 in there. I'm not sure what that's in relation to, but these are all semantics of that image that will help a user understand what's in the PDF. Now, there's a whole bunch of tags out there. I have listed out some of the primary tag structure. Now, I include this slide in our training because I often find that people are confused as to what tag goes where. So we're going to briefly talk about this. Our first tag that we're going to talk about is the P tag. This typically represents body text within a document. Next, we have our heading tags. Now, it's very important that you use the exact tag structure you're seeing on the screen here, because if I were to write, let's say in the tag structure, I was going to type heading 1. That is going to give me a fail because it's not a recognized tag. The correct heading tag for a heading 1 would be a capital H followed by the number 1 inside the greater and less than symbols. This continues through for other heading tags. So we have our H1, our H2, and so on. List elements have a very specific tag structure. All list elements are contained under the parent L tag. Every parent L tag has child LI or list item tags, which contain the contents of that list. Now, there is some further breakdown of these list elements, of these list items. Those include the label, which typically is the bullet or the number or the dash, followed by the L body, which is all of the contents of the list. Now, in order for your document to be compliant with Section 508 standards, it needs to have the list, the L parent tag, an LI tag, and the L body. At this time, the label is not required for 508. Figure tags include many different elements. Primarily, it's for images, but it can also include other graphics, charts, diagrams, basically anything that's not text. So the figure tag really has a lot of elements in it. And so I've seen people get hung up on that where they want to put graphic or something art, right? But in this case, the figure tag really contains all of those non-text elements. Next, we have table tags. So table tags have a very specific structure to them as well. We have our table parent tag. Then every table has to have TR, which are table rows, followed by THs, which are table headers, and then TDs, which are table data. If your table does not have that basic tag structure, it will not be accessible. Last but not least, we have links. Links, again, must be structured a very specific way, and they include any hyperlink in your document. Essentially, you must have a link parent tag. And in addition to that, you must have what's called the link OBJR or object reference tag. This essentially tells the computer and assistive technology that the item is clickable. All right, have I lost anyone yet? Yes, TR is table row. Every table has table rows. Every table row has either a table data cell or a table header, sometimes both. Okay, we're gonna move on. I realize I'm taking too much time already, so I'm gonna press the gas a little bit here. Bear with me. So what if you have a document that is untagged? Well, we're gonna walk through one tool that can help you add a baseline tag structure. Now, this will not make your document fully compliant. However, it will give you a starting point to begin applying other accessibility principles, okay? Now, that first thing we're going to look at is the Make Accessible Action Wizard. Again, all of these names, they are the same. So if I stutter, I will try to correct myself. Now, the first step for the Action Wizard is to select the Make Accessible button. Then you select Start. From here, the Action Wizard is going to take us through a variety of windows. Now, all of these things that the Action Wizard does, you could do them manually. The Action Wizard sort of takes common practices and puts them in a step-by-step process that you simply have to hit OK, and it will walk you through those common things. Now, the first one is to set the title of a document. This is a 508 requirement. You should ensure that all of your documents have a title in them. Be descriptive, be clear and concise with your title. Now, the second step of the Action Wizard is Adobe is going to run OCR on the document. This can sometimes overwrite any previous OCR that has been done. So think of this as a singular tool in your toolbox. The third step for the Action Wizard is to identify any form fields. This will not make your form accessible. This will help you identify form fields. There are still items that you need to apply in order to make a form accessible, including annotations and things like that. The fourth step, this will actually prompt you to set the reading language of your document, which is pretty nice. You don't have to go anywhere special. It just simply pulls up a window for you and you can select OK. The fifth step, it will identify any images that are missing alt text and prompt you to add that alt text on the fly. You can again do this manually, but it's nice to sort of see all of them at one time. And then finally, the last step of the Action Wizard is actually the accessibility checker. So let's take a look and see what that looks like. So I'm going to pull up a document, and very quickly, I'm going to go down to the Action Wizard, and I'm going to select Make Accessible, and then Start. The first window that appears is my title window. For this, because of my time, I'm going to leave as is, but we have a title. That's great. I'm going to select OK. Next, it's going to recognize the text. Let's select OK. It's currently running OCR in the background. This document does not contain any forms, so I'm going to say, no, let's skip this step. I'm going to set the reading language to English and select OK. And then finally, let's look and see if any of the images need alt text. This one's missing some alt text. We will say this is pillow lava. If any of you have taken any of our PDF sessions in the past, this document probably looks familiar. You might be sick of seeing it, but I love this document. It's got historical context. Okay, this one is lava. And we will do save and close. Now, the final step is the accessibility checker. This is an automated scan. It should be used at the end of your remediation process to verify what you have done. Then we select Start Checking. Now in here, we have a couple issues, but what I want to look at is actually the tags panel. So this document originally was untagged. It had no tags in it. And we can see that we have a little bit of remediation that will need to occur. I'm going to try to get to some of it, but it starts, for example, as an H3. The very first tag is an H3 on Pillow Lava. Then we have our figure tag, which actually is wrapping what's supposed to be our H1 and our H2 into a caption tag. So this needs a little bit of love. But what we're looking at here is simply a starting point. And if we look at this table, oh my goodness, it is not pretty. We have a table that was recognized to have a single table row, and we have all of the content on the left of the table under a single TH tag, followed by all of the content on the right-hand side in a TH tag. Now, if we had more time, I'd show you how to fix this manually, but for now, we're gonna keep moving on. What I also wanted to show you was I have the same document, and we're gonna pretend that I made it accessible in Word. and I created my PDF using the Acrobat toolbar. Okay, we're pulling the cookies out of the oven and they're done in this example. But I want to just look at the tags panel. So the point of this is to show you the more time you can spend in Microsoft Word, you're going to get a better tag structure when you create your PDF. So when I made this document accessible in Word, I have an H1 that comes through good, an H2, an H3. We need a little bit of love on our figure tags. They seem to be nested under body tags for some reason. But all in all, let's take a look at our table. Our table has table rows. Our table rows have table headers. So all in all, our content is tagged appropriately when it came from Microsoft Word. So another way that you can add tags to an untagged document is using the reading order tool. Now, the reading order tool is really good for marking artifacts or missing content. So an artifact is something that the screen reader will skip. Sometimes when you run the accessibility check, you might find an error that says content not tagged or something. If you've worked in this field for a while, you've definitely seen that error. Occasionally, you can mark that content as an artifact. It could be leftover formatting for when you created your document, either from HTML or wherever else it might be. And you're just going to force it to make a screen reader skip it. Additionally, if you have content that should be in your tags panel and it's not there, the reading order tool is really good at identifying that. So you can draw a box around the content and mark it and get it into your tags panel. It's pretty straightforward to use. To launch the reading order tool, you'll select the accessibility button, then the reading order button. From here, you can drag a box around the contents. It does rely on dragging and using your mouse. Once you select the content using the reading order tool, you can use the reading order menu to mark the content a specific tag. Now, for some reason, Adobe doesn't include a lot of common tags like links or list elements, but this is a good way to give you a baseline for getting that content into your document. So let's take a look really quick at how we would use that. I'm going to pull up my document that had a little bit of issues. So for this tag here that starts as an H3, let's fix this top level structure using my reading order tool. So on the accessibility button, I can select reading order. Let me condense this window down. I have my reading order options here. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to drag my mouse around the top level content here, and I'm going to select heading 1. Then over types of lava and magma, I will make this a heading level 2. And there is more here, but I have more content to cover. So essentially what I did, I was able to remove that content out of the caption tag, and it's now up here at the top, but we need to adjust our reading order. So earlier when I was talking about the parent-child relationship, this is where you can move your tags. So using my keyboard and keyboard shortcuts, I'm going to select my H2 and my H3 tag. I'm going to Control Exit, go down to this tag, the H1 tag, and Control V, and it pastes the tags underneath. So now I have an H1, an H2, and an H3 in the correct order. You guys are doing great. I know I'm covering a lot of information here. Where was I? The reading order tool. Okay, finally, we have the auto tag feature. Now, the auto tag feature is another tool in our toolbox that can help apply a baseline starting point. Oftentimes, you will use a variety of these tools simultaneously. For example, auto tag and the reading order tool can get you a mostly compliant document. There are other 508 requirements that are not talked about in this demo, like the color contrast tool, the color contrast requirements, and a couple other minor formatting things within the document properties. But the auto tagging can also help get you there. So let's take a look at auto tagging. I have another document in here, creating accessible MS Word docs, and it currently has no tags available. So I'm going to run some magic on it. First, I will select the accessibility button, and then I'm going to select auto tag. Now it's going to feel almost like nothing happened because it's just super quick. So when I select this, it's going to apply a tag structure to this document. Doesn't mean it will be correct. So I pushed the auto tag. Now I'm going to come down to my tags panel, expand my menu out, and we can see that we have a basic tag structure. It's not perfect. This is actually supposed to be an H1 and an H2, but we can walk the tags panel. Ooh, look at that list. It's beautiful. It comes in with a label and a L body, which is fantastic. We have a missing heading here, and we need some work on our captions and figures, but this gives us a starting point, okay? Now, if I were to remediate the rest of this document, I would come in using my reading order tool and start chopping things up and marking as headers. Okay. We are just about finished here. Again, I just want to say, use the accessibility checker as a final check. It's automated. It will not replace a manual check. To run that accessibility checker, you will go to the accessibility button, select accessibility check, and select start checking. This will prompt you to set a variety of other accessibility elements. We can do the primary language, for example. If you right click the error and select fix, a lot of these you can do on the fly here. Some of you cannot. For example, if we do the figures, right click fix, it will prompt us to add these alt text elements as we go. Obviously, I'm putting dummy text in here for now. But what's nice about it is it walks us through each image that is missing alt text. Again, automated scan, okay? So I can make a document past this very easily. It's important to put good, appropriate alt text. Finally, we have a nesting issue with our headings. If I right click and do show in tags panel, basically what it's saying is this element is marked as a H4, but there's no H3 above it. So we skipped. We went from H2 to H4, which is a fail. We didn't actually go through and manually apply our headings like we should have. But this is a good example of why you shouldn't rely on the accessibility checker. Use it as a verification of the work you've already done. And with that, today you briefly learned how to convert a document from Word using that Acrobat tab or the File Save As. Avoid using the Print to PDF. That will strip all your formatting. We looked at using the Action Wizard to provide a baseline structure of accessibility and tags. We looked at using the Reading Order tool to make changes and updates to our tag structure. And we looked at auto tagging and the accessibility checker. So, to date, this is the fastest PDF accessibility training I've ever done in my life. If you have questions, please reach out to us at the VRC. Thank you, everyone, for today. We have about 2 minutes. I'm happy to try to answer a question in this time. Oh, and a bunch of them came in. If a document has English and Spanish, you want to set the primary language as whatever there is more of, but you'll actually need to mark the individual tags within Acrobat to Spanish. At least that's what I do as a best practice.
And then Shawn, we had one question. What is the best way to make equations accessible in a PDF?
Yeah, equations are tricky in PDFs. Typically, we encourage faculty and staff to actually have the equations in a different format like HTML, Word. But technically, there is a standard for PDF accessibility with math, and that is under the formula tag type, which was not included on my list as I consider a non-standard tag type. However, I have seen accessible math in a PDF. It's probably the most complicated tagging you could do, even above forms, in my opinion. I highly recommend you doing some Google research on formula tags within PDF and how they interact with assistive technology. Okay, I see the questions, and I'm sorry, but I am just about out of time here. One final note: your documents don't have to stay in PDF. It's okay for you to put them into Canvas pages and make them accessible. It's okay to put them into HTML pages. It's okay to put them in Word documents and make them accessible. PDF is not the end all be all. With that, thank you everyone, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thank you, Shawn. And I've tracked some questions that we'll be posting to the VRC later.
Excellent.